back to another update of how Zachary's doing. Well, last night was interesting. Thankfully, Tim comes every evening or late afternoon and gives me some attention, some food, brings some clean clothes, keeps us going. He's quite the trooper to come back and forth, and he also many times stays and lets me get a couple hours of sleep without being interrupted, and just watches Zachary and makes sure he's okay while I'm sleeping. So really thankful he did that last night because I was really tired. The night before, Zach didn't sleep well. He was all over the place waiting to pull things out, and of course last night he did. He finally pulled out his needle that where he gets the medicines from. He pulled it out, and we had to get a new one put in. It's part of working with someone who doesn't understand what's going on and wants to pull things out and doesn't like to be restrained, and it's hard to do what's good for somebody when they don't understand that it's good for them and you're trying to help them. So I'm sure everybody listening to this could relate to one time or another where they've been like that and later found out that they were really being helped, or they were the ones trying to help and it was not appreciated. So we got some sleep, and Tim worked on his newsletter, which went with the ideas that we're coming up with lately on just the prophecy of God's healing and His goodness in the end days. So I look forward to hearing what everybody thinks of his newsletter. He put it out, I believe, last night, and stayed up really late doing it, stayed up in the room really late putting that together for all of you. It's a free newsletter. And then he snuck out and went home. Zachary, we asked for just a small amount of sedation for sleeping, and he slept until about 1:30, and then he woke up and he was all over the place and pulling at things. And I tried to calm him for about an hour and a half, and he just wanted to keep pulling my hand towards him and then pulling it away. I pushed my bed up against his. I do that just to watch him, make sure he's okay, also to calm him and be there. And he did that for a while, and I knew he needed to sleep, so I was able to figure out how to readjust his restraints to help him to be able to hold his hands but not be able to pull anything out. And he went to sleep. He lied back and rested, went to sleep, and slept until 8:30. So he did really well. I did really well too. I woke up actually about 15 minutes before he did, and I was able to go into the bathroom and refresh myself while he was sleeping. And he woke up after that about 4 or 5 times and coughed 2 or 3 times, which of course with pneumonia, everybody that has dealt with pneumonia knows coughing is good. You need to get that stuff out. But he just coughed a little bit and then went back down and went back to sleep again. So I feel pretty okay this morning. It's pretty nice to feel pretty okay. Got some decent sleep, and so it's a good Saturday. It's a good Saturday. Zachary's he looked slightly pale today. Doctor noticed it, so did I. But he's still recovering. His oxygen levels are staying up, and actually we lowered his oxygen levels, and the doctor said, okay. So they had it lowered to 6 yesterday, I saw in the evening, and she just lowered it to 4 and said, okay, now look at this display here, and this is his oxygen levels. If it's between 95 to 100%, it's doing great, and if you want, you can put it down another notch, and if he's still holding good on the oxygen, then leave it there, and then later you can put it down further. So they're slowly weaning him off of oxygen as well. So I got a few more smiles this morning, although he was his morning self, especially when he's been sick. Woke up and he looked at me and he was peaceful enough, but give him too much attention, he's like those people that haven't had their coffees yet. It's like, no, not ready, just no. So, But after I got the breakfast into him, and he ate, and he gave me some more smiles. He's still not talking. I don't know if his throat is not well yet, or if he's just not ready to talk. But some of the spirit in his eyes and life is coming back, and that's really good to see. So today I have the idea, it was yesterday I had this idea, but something else came up to talk about, of talking about burden versus burdensome. I think that some of the posts that we've had and comments that we've had, I think actually even ourselves, Tim and I at times, everyone knows that as humans we can be a burden. We're all limited, and when we're babies, for instance, our parents have to take care of us, and we are a burden. When we're elderly and we need help, we can be a burden. We have sicknesses, and we can be a burden. We can be a burden financially, as well as having to lift you up literally. It could be a burden by time spent with you, teaching you and guiding you, or protecting you from yourself or from others. We have all these things where there's burdens all around. There's this famous song, it used to be famous. It was made famous by the Hollies, although it had been originally sung by somebody else at first. Back in '69, it's called "He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother." And it's a song about a man having to take care of his brother, pick him up and take care of him. And he would say, "He ain't heavy, he's my brother." And so what I really like about the idea is that it's not saying that there isn't a burden, but it doesn't have to be burdensome. And many times we go through life really, really stressed, and and being really stressed, we feel burdened. And in Scripture, actually, we're told in a couple places what to do with our burdensomeness in the middle of carrying our burden. In Psalm chapter 55, verse 22, we have, "Cast your burden on the Lord, and he shall sustain you. He shall never permit the righteous to be moved." We read these again, and sometimes they sound pretty, but we don't really know how to put them in everyday life. So to cast your burden on the Lord, on Yehovah, is talking about not having to stress, believing that he's there with you and that he's helping you and sustaining you in the middle of it, and watching over you. You still probably have to carry some of the weight, but you don't feel burdensome. You feel like full of hope and full of God, he says, he shall sustain you. So he might have you still carry the burden, but he will sustain you so that it's not burdensome. And if it is burdensome, whatever's going on, whether you're a caretaker, whether you're taking care of a child, whether you're having to provide for somebody financially or whatever, or even your own family that you get irritated with and you're just tired of cleaning up after. I have no idea what I'm talking about. Actually, my husband's really good at cleaning up now, so I can't say that that's terrible, but one of my sons is not so good at it. But in the middle of all that, serving and everything else, it says that God shall sustain you. So you'll do the work, but he will be there. It says he shall never permit the righteous to be moved. Emotionally speaking, we should be able to stay in joy and at peace, and knowing that we are limited. We aren't going to be able to handle the whole burden on our own, so it's not burdensome. But we can walk and do with whatever burdens that we have, with help and with strength from above, and not just on our own strength. Another scripture that comes to mind with it is Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 through 29. It says, Christ said, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." So if you're stressed and you've got a heavy job and you've got heavy responsibilities, and food to provide for the table, and house to clean, and car broken down, everything else, all those things can be really stressful or a very difficult job. but it says that you can come to Christ and He will give you rest. He says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. What this means is that He will guide you gently. He's a teacher. You know how my dad used to share this story every once in a while, how he had a teacher that had a ruler, and my dad, he's ambidextrous, but he's left-hand dominant. And the teacher would come over and try to be really strict and would slap his hand for using his left hand to write. And back in those days, they tried to make all children write with their right hand and become right-handed. They didn't like left-handers. And my dad, he just wouldn't have it, and he went ahead and allowed his hands to be slapped by rulers regularly and refused, and stayed a left-handed dominant person to this day. And I'm left-handed actually, and so is my son. And actually, we're ambidextrous like my dad is, so it's kind of an interesting thing. But the point is you have these teachers that are very strict and trying to get you and push you in different directions. And Christ is saying that He's gentle and lowly in heart. He's the type of teacher that says, okay, this is the way to do it. You can do it. I believe in you. This is how it's done. You need to do it the way that I'm telling you, because it doesn't work any other way. And if you do it the way that I'm telling you to do it, then you will find rest for your souls. So you will be able to carry your burdens, learn how to carry them right. It's like people that work in DHL or the post office, they need to learn how to use their body properly, so that when they pick up packages and boxes, they don't hurt their back. And they have to have teachers and supports for doing those things to make sure that they're taking care of themselves. And so if you don't listen to how to do that right, well, you can injure yourself. So in the same way, Christ takes us, and as we are lifting different burdens emotionally, spiritually, and just living life, we learn how to do it appropriately to where it's not burdensome, and we learn how to get the extra strength from Christ in order to carry on our duties. And as we do that, we will find rest, and also we will find that carrying those burdens has opportunity. Just like lifting weights in a gym helps give you stronger muscles, and it helps to protect your body in many ways as you're moving about and doing things, and gives more oxygen to your body, and it's beneficial. It's also important to exercise in many different ways. Exercise our minds, exercise our hearts, exercise the way that we love one another, exercise how we trust in God. And I believe that's the whole point, is the more that you trust that God is with you and He's good, He's there for you, and He's helping you to in all of your tasks. And you can't do it all if you recognize you can't do it all. And He says, and He promises by all these scriptures that I'm sharing, that He will show up. He will sustain you, and He'll take care of the part that you can't. So I'll end with the last scripture that kind of underlines it all. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7 says, casting all your care upon Him, for He cares for you. We have such an awesome God. We have such an awesome Messiah. They really care for you, and you can trust in them to help you through whatever. And sometimes it will be overwhelming, and those are the times where we have the opportunity to just do the best we can, and with hope believe that it's good enough, because that's all they expect. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because what I'd like to say about Zachary is, at times, I admit, just like any human being, and at times that I've been, has been burdensome. And it has been all about my mind, the way that I view it. It used to be burdensome. Now, I know that he's a burden. Yes, I have to care for him more than another person. I can't, do as many things as other people because we have someone that we have to take care of. All these things are true, but and we still have to carry the burden, but it doesn't feel burdensome. It's with joy that we can do it, because we see that Zachary, the way that He is like those weights I was talking about that you get in a gym. They are teaching us the characteristics that we need in this life to genuinely be loving and genuinely trust God in our weakness, that His strength abounds. And it really does. God shows up all the time, everywhere. And those are the things, these characteristics will last for eternity. So I hope this helps encourage all of you with everything that you feel stressed and anxiety about and you feel is burdensome, that those things can be given to God and you can learn to trust in Him and get out of perfectionism and go ahead and trust. Just do the best you can and let things fall apart if they need to, and still believe that if you do your best and you trust in God, He'll make up the difference. Love you all. Hope this helps.